It's time for the Thyworm Weekly Roundup with my curated news and personal gaming endeavors. Are you enjoying these? Consider subscribing. Grinding Gear Games held their first ExileCon and announced a bunch of new things. The most impressive one is Path of Exile 2, which provided a graphical overhaul, a completely revamped lighting system, a super cool looking physics system with some great animations and, for example, arrows sticking into and bouncing off environments. The game boasts a new 7-act campaign, a new skill system, ascendancy classes and more. The story takes place 20 years after the current PoE story. All features from PoE 1 will be available in PoE 2, meaning all the league mechanics basically and all the microtransactions you bought will carry over to the new game. There's no release date yet, but beta testing commences very late 2020, meaning that we will be playing this in 2021 or maybe even later. There will be new leagues, however, until that time every 3 months. And one of those expansions will be Conquerors of the Atlas, the patch 3.9.0, which releases December 13th. It contains new Atlas mechanics, 5 new endgame bosses, a new powerful class of support gem, a bow rework, the Metamorph Challenge League and more. Especially the Metamorph League is an interesting one because it lets you combine monsters using this alchemist character, Tane Octavius. You can basically create a complete Frankenstein with tons of difficult modifiers to increase your rewards. From what I've seen so far, these bosses look really cool and their animations are incredible. Last and least, PoE develops a mobile version as well. They'd be a fool not to from a business perspective, and according to them, their endgame with bite-sized maps lends itself perfectly for mobile play. I'm curious to see the amount of depth they will be able to put into this mobile game, but I trust Grinding Gear Games enough to make this into something decent. Which doesn't mean I'm necessarily excited for it. They promised no pay-to-win elements and the whole thing is built in-house. Last Epoch posted another potion update. You might think, why is that such a big deal? Well, the previous potion update, link in the card, wasn't that well received by the community. Partly because implementing a good potion system is apparently pretty hard, and partly because the post was just not very well written, leaving us with a lot more questions than answers. In the end, the discussion basically boiled down to something like, okay community, we get it, we will post another update on this soon. And that is this update. The main issues being addressed are 1. The fact that modifiers on items are already crammed, leaving no room for viable potion modifications. Also, the usefulness of potion modifications is disputed still. 2. Potions only drop from ads, making boss fights without ads dropping no potions, which creates some issues for certain builds. And 3. Potions are used reactively when health is missing instead of proactively. These are the issues. Let's look at the presented solutions from lead developer Trasochi. First, the modifiers on items will shift from focusing on potions to focusing on ward. Ward in Last Epoch is basically the equivalent of energy shield in Path of Exile. The potion modifiers still exist but are very rare and much more powerful. This change allows players to use potions proactively because you get a ward, which basically increases your effective health pool. And there are some consequences to this change. First of all, ward builds, which do exist and seem viable, will benefit a lot from these changes. For a ward build, those new affixes show a lot more potential when crafting items because you'll get more ward, you can decide when you're getting ward, and because of that decide when all the benefits from having ward come into play. Making potion modifiers rarer and only present on the belt, which makes sense by the way, solves to some extent the crammed modifier issue when crafting, but obviously not completely because one way or another you are sacrificing a modifier slot that is very beneficial to any character for a potion modifier. So that potion modifier, rare as it may be, better be worth it. Second, Last Epoch buffed the base potion health. The result is that you no longer need potion modifiers to ensure that potions always heal you to full. Potions now just natively heal for a lot more, up to 80% more at max level. It also results in the removal of a bunch of potion modifiers, which mainly provided additional potion health or health regen. Third, bosses will drop potions when hit. This way, builds dependent on potions or builds that require a lot of healing can still be viable in longer solo boss fights without ads. Now let's look at the specific affix changes that this overhaul brings. There is ward gain on potion use and a converter from potion health to ward that basically converts health gain to ward gain. Good for ward builds, I would imagine. Then there are 3 rare belt specific prefixes. 1. Extra potion slot and added potion health, which doesn't seem all that useful to me. You can already get at least 5 potions on an endgame belt. Do you really need 6? 2. Ignite chance on potion use. This is rather specific, but probably useful for an Ignite build. 3. Dodge rating on potions. This has to be good, actually it is also 4 times stronger than before. The community seems to echo most of the sentiments I'm putting forward here. Giving up any of the mandatory affixes like glancing blows is mostly a no-go area for viable endgame characters. There is this general idea that the devs really shouldn't focus too much on potions because they're just potions. The boss hit drop potion thing is well received overall. The fact that the devs are listening to the community feedback is once again also much appreciated. If these potion changes lead to a few niche ward potion builds, I think the devs can consider these changes to be successful. As it stands now, the hardcore serious endgame players will never drop any of the so-called mandatory slots for a modifier instead of a potion modifier, and that is fine, I think. But people like me who don't mind experimenting with builds at the cost of getting one shot every now and then can have a fun time with this system. Last Epoch released patch 0.7.4, and there's good news and bad news. The good news, it brings once again a ton of new features. Some of the highlights includes a new mastery class system by using a quest in the end of time hub. Doing so also grants you a class specific skill and some passives. The new feature Time Rifts is in place, warping you to a different era within the same physical location with new monsters and loot. The campaign got a few tweaks in terms of pathing and layouts, making certain areas more accessible. A bunch of new skills got added and other skills now have specialization trees. Freeze got an overall buff with most of the skills that freeze enemies having now a much higher chance of doing so. There's a new UI tooltip for nodes, making it much easier to read item and item descriptions. The potion rework I just spoke about is available. There are 3 new unique items. The UI got a small overhaul and there are graphical, sound and performance changes plus a boatload of bug fixes. That's the good news. The bad news? Since this update, the game runs like shit. I have an i7 8700 and an RTX 2080, and when I tested some streaming of this game yesterday to show off the new patch, it ran with 12 frames per second. Ultra or medium settings, it didn't matter. First, I thought it was OBS, because OBS does this sometimes, but other games worked perfectly fine. Then I looked at my PC resources and I saw Last Epoch taking up more than 60% of my CPU and 80% of my GPU while being in the character selection screen. Ouch. I tried it again this morning, exactly the same thing. If there's one thing that prevents Last Epoch from being a success, it will be optimization. I have heard also other people with very similar issues after previous patches. They commented on videos I make, it's on Steam, it's on the forums. I had performance issues on my previous PC too, which had an AMD 8350 CPU and a GeForce 1060 GPU. And now on this monster PC pretty much, I don't even get 40 frames per second on 1080p with medium settings. Bright Memory, a shooter released in January this year, is getting an update on November 20th. Earlier this year, the game raised quite a storm in the media. It looked super polished, it was a ton of fun to play, it only costs €5 and it was made by a single Chinese developer, which is really insane if you play this game. Which you should, because it's truly an amazing experience, although it is only 2 hours long. Back then, this guy received a sort of fund from Nvidia to keep working on the game, which he did, and now he found a publisher, PlayisM. This publisher focuses on indie titles from Asia, judging by their website, and it's just great news overall. This means that this beauty of a game will receive some more PR and will hopefully find its way to more fans. I'm certainly one of them. To celebrate all this, Bright Memory gets a big update on November 20th. There will be English and Japanese voice acting. I couldn't really figure out if there's also new content. I'm not sure, but we'll see. In the meantime, our Chinese dev prodigy is working on the full title, named Bright Memory Infinite, which hopefully is not a reference to the amount of time this guy will need to complete the entire game. He is alone after all. I played Woven because I requested the review key and the devs were so kind to provide it to me. And in Woven, your main character is Fluffy. Fluffy is a stuffed animal in a world woven out of wool. And in this world, evil machine insects are terrorizing the land. And my hope was that behind this cute looking indie game, which really struck me to some extent, there would be some actual enjoyable gameplay. Unfortunately, this is purely a kids game without any sense of humor for adults, or at least for me. It looks nice, but it is way too easy to be enjoyable. There's this voiceover dude who rhymes all the time and literally won't shut up for more than 5 minutes. Everything is spelled out for you and the only variety is the colors on Fluffy's outfit, which you can customize. If I had hair, I would be pulling them out by now. Great game if you have native English speaking kids. If not, stay away. Another indie game was much more to my liking, Sparklite, a roguelite Zelda-inspired game. Pixel art style, indie, cheerful, funny. I liked it quite a lot actually. Sparklite refers to the currency in the game, which is also the life force of the planet. You, Ada, are some sort of inventor girl. You crashed into this planet, you watch the suffering caused by the 5 bosses or barons, and it's up to you to do something about it. You can use Sparklite to get new gear, to invent new gadgets, and to get better and stronger over time. That's how the roguelite element is interwoven in this game. When you die, a crane picks you up, puts you back on the main hub, and all the Sparklite you collected is still there. And this happens over and over again, because in true Zelda style, you need certain gadgets to pass certain puzzles, and in order to get those gadgets, you need to collect Sparklite. Sparklite offers a good amount of fun and gameplay, and some interesting roguelite mechanics as well. Some beautiful graphics, great music. It's a game made with a lot of attention to detail and a lot of love from the developers. You just notice that while playing. This is really why I enjoy indie games so much, because they feel much more personal than big budget studios with much more original ideas as well. Full disclosure, I also got a review key for this one, but if you like what you see in the video, you could definitely buy the game. If you're not sure yet, the devs released a demo, so you can have a look at it yourself. Destiny 2 Shadowkeep is currently on sale for 40% off. That's a good deal. It led to people sort of review bombing the game on Steam because they paid the full price 2 months ago, and this thing is now already on sale. I don't know what this means for Bungie. I hope their move to get away from Blizzard isn't backfiring, because I think it was a bold and great move to make. I will be getting this expansion and trying it out for a bit, just out of support for the devs. On top of that, I feel this is a decent price for the expansion, the amount of content, and just the sheer amount of gameplay you'll get out of this. Some personal updates. I'm still playing Grim Dawn, the Dervish, currently on elite mode. It is still super fun. I'm level 75. I'm really itching to get back into Path of Exile as well, because of this whole ExileCon thing, and I might do so even before the next league hits. Just playing around with that game again should be a lot of fun. I started streaming again, at least a little bit. The new setup over here is getting tweaked, but it looks good so far, so I'm happy with that. Maybe I'll start up another stream tonight. I have 2 weeks off of work, a small holiday. I'm planning to visit Düsseldorf in Germany next week, which would mean no weekly update, just so you know. But I might create some other content if I feel like being creative over there. We will see. It's just going to be me on a small trip. I'm curious to see if I will enjoy something like that. I don't mind going out by myself, doing activities just alone, but going on a holiday just by myself would be a first. Once again, we will see. And that's all I have for you this week. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all in 2 weeks. I love you all. Bye bye.